Okay, hello everybody. That's our virtual trainer to our new to do deploy Friday. I'm here with Chad. Hello, Chad.
Hi, everyone.
I'm here with amazing Larry Garfield. Larry,
Bonjour.
bonjour. And here again with Robert Douglas. Hello, Robert.
Hello, everybody.
That's amazing because right now we're trying to have several broadcasting, and then I need to check every channel to see if everything is okay. So, guys, please introduce yourself while I'm here in backstage.
Chad, go first.
Hi, everyone. I'm Chad Carlson. I'm a technical writer with the DevRel team at Platform.sh. I spent a lot of my time working with Node apps, multi-app decoupled things, sometimes Go, and just a lot of playing around and seeing what works.
Go ahead, Larry.
Hi, I'm Troy McClure. No, wait, I'm Larry Garfield, Director of Developer Experience here at Platform. And I come mainly from a PHP background, but dabble in a lot of things these days, although still PHP is my native tongue. Yeah, looking forward to people throwing questions at us to see if this technology works, because technology.
Yeah, and I'm Robert Douglas, and this is the team that I work with every day at Platform.sh, trying to help developers understand the product and become enthusiastic about it. And in case it was unclear from the beginning, we are testing new streaming technology, and we thought we'd just get on and have a really fun, informal conversation with anybody who wanted to join us and ask any questions they wanted to ask. Everything's fair game. The general topic is cloud deploying, but hey, if you want to talk about the weather, that's fine. We'll answer the questions. My weather right now is cold and rainy.
This is the first nice day we've had in Chicago in like a week, so.
I'm in Florida, so it's hot and humid, as always.
I'm here in Brazil, so we don't have a season. Basically, it's 32 Celsius, like every day. And guess what? It's here 32 Celsius today. By the way, my name is Otávio Santana. I'm the crazy guy who decided to test on YouTube because you care about people and love to be close to the community around the cloud system, and for sure, platform message, right? So that's why I'm here. That's why I'm loving to be here with several people. That's why we decided to try on YouTube to see how it's going on, and that is it. So guys, I have my first question. Why nobody's answer or something? Could you, Larry, introduce what is cloud computing model and why should I care about that?
So cloud computing is a rather terrible name for what's actually an interesting technology. There's the cloud, which is the current in vogue name for someone else's hard drive, outsourcing your technology to someone else's servers. Then there's cloud computing, which is abstracting away a computer system, I'm using scare quotes here, from physical hardware. And whether you're using virtual machines or containers or something like that for it, the idea is you can create these logical computers with their own processes, their own root system, their own root user, their own programs that talk to other systems over the network, even though that doesn't necessarily correspond to a physical box. So you could have one physical box that has 20 of these cloud units on them. Usually these days they're done with containers. Or you can have one really big of these virtual systems spread across multiple smaller pieces of hardware. And that gives you a lot of flexibility to experiment, to try out new things, new versions of software, to deploy stuff by just rebuilding the entire system from scratch, throwing away the old one and launching a new one. And you don't actually need to mess around with hardware. You don't need to install operating systems. That's all automated. And you have a lot more flexibility to just play with things with a lot more freedom. And that's really what cloud computing gives you, is that ability to think of logical systems independent of physical systems. And then there's a lot of additional benefits that you can build on top of that, many of which Platform builds. And I think Ottavio muted himself. So, Robert.
Yes, I'm trying to be the DJ here. So guys, carry on.
Am I on mute? I can't even tell.
Nope.
No, you hear me, right? Okay. So I just commented on the YouTube chat that there are people watching. Thank you for joining us. So if you have any questions, please, this is your time. Ask us anything. We don't have a set agenda. We can talk for a full hour about topics that we choose, and you won't have any control or say of that. But if you do ask questions, then you get to direct the conversation. I have no idea what we're going to talk about, so I'm just going to tell you what I just demonstrated on Platform.sh, which was pretty cool, and what Chad and I are working on together, and what Chad's going to be presenting up in the upcoming Bad Camp conference next week. So one of the things that I love about Platform.sh is its ability to run multiple applications side by side in the same project, and have organized development workflows for each of those that don't interfere with each other. And Chad's going to give a presentation next week at Bad Camp about running Drupal plus Gatsby in a headless configuration where you get both of those applications side by side in containers with a workflow for development where you can update the Gatsby app or you can update the Drupal app from a developer's point of view. And Platform.sh will build each one independently without interfering with the other, and then they operate really well with each other. So I got really excited because we actually have some people who are looking into doing something like that with an application with Gatsby or Next.js or Angular as a front end. And it struck me that Chad's going to be giving a demonstration of that next week at Bad Camp, if anybody's going to Bad Camp. Oh my gosh, we have questions.
We do. By all means, anybody register for Bad Camp if you're interested in seeing that talk. That came out of a good amount of research I did over a couple months that was really looking at Gatsby in depth for the first time and seeing how we could take the way we handle multi-apps on Platform.sh and start combining it with Drupal, with WordPress, with another headless CMS backend called Strappy. And it became really, really easy to configure. And then we got, as an added bonus, this additional feature that comes packed into Gatsby, but is at times a little bit difficult to set up, which is this live preview feature. So if you're setting up a application for a client or for whatever your application use is, and you have sort of separate teams that are dedicated to the content side or the front-end development side, you can use our multi-app setup in a development server, specifically on anything that isn't the production environment, and end up getting on your Drupal site a tiny change in your blog posts or whatever you have for your main content that'll result in a refreshed front end on the Gatsby app container, which was really cool to figure out. So that's what I'll be demoing at Bad Camp, is setting that all up with platform configuration up to the point of enabling this live preview feature.
Cool, thanks. I'd like to take the question from Francis, who very appropriately asks, I don't want to sink a bunch of time supporting my team by switching over to it, which I presume you mean Platform.sh, without reassurances. How alpha is it, and what are some of the pain points you might run into? So we've been actually on the market for, I think, 5 years now. Well, as Platform.sh officially since 2016. But before that, even for 2 years under the previous name Commerce Guys. And we have over 5,000 customers. Those are direct customers with us. We also have partners who have built extensive products on our technology. One of those is owned by Adobe. It's called Magento. Well, I'm going to call it Magento Cloud because I continuously forget what their marketing name is for it. But when you buy a Magento Enterprise hosted site from Adobe, then that's something that runs on Platform.sh technology, and they have well over 1,000 enterprise class Magento sites running there. We also run the Symfony Cloud. So if you're familiar with Symfony as a program and you use their Symfony CLI and deploy a site through the Symfony Cloud, that's a Platform.sh product in the background. We also run the Easy Platform Cloud, another partner of ours. So we're actually a pretty mature product at this point. So in terms of it being alpha, it's not. It's definitely not. We're SOC 2 compliant. We've got PCI compliance. We have GDPR. We've got 200 people around the world on every continent in the company, and we're also well funded through venture capitalists. So yeah, it's not a risk adopting Platform.sh from the point of view of the product being ready or not, or the company being ready or not. In terms of the actual pain points that you would run into if you adopted Platform.sh right now, the main pain point is simply understanding the assumptions that we make about your application and how to meet the requirements for your application to run on Platform.sh, because since we're an abstraction layer over the cloud and we aim to remove the DevOps from your organization as completely as possible, then we try to do a lot in the background. So for example, if you bring an application onto Platform.sh, there are usually 3 files that you need. One file will
Rob,
describe, yes?
He actually responded. He's talking about Lando.
Oh, Lando. Oh, that was completely
that I can
unclear to me. Over to you, Larry.
Yeah. So
thank you, Francis, for clarifying.
Yeah. YouTube has a character limit, so some questions are going to get chopped up. So as for the Lando integration, yes, that is alpha. It is at the moment pretty good, still kind of rough. I've started using it for some projects. Some projects it's working well, some I'm still running into a few issues. I'd say it is definitely ready to experiment with. I would not commit your whole company to it yet. Our goal is that by the end of the year, you will be able to, and Lando becomes the local dev tool for Platform. For right now, I'd say definitely play with it, definitely find those bugs, find those usability challenges that we can feed back to the Lando team. But I agree it's not quite ready to just commit your entire project to that only. That said, it is still a very light touch tool. It's one config file you add. So, and that config file does not break anything on Platform. So having a .lando.yaml file in your repository, if it doesn't quite work on the Lando integration yet, that doesn't break anything else. You're fine.
And we have, thanks to Mike Pirog, we have quite a few templates now with the Lando files built in, right? Well, which templates can people reach out to try Platform.sh plus Lando pre-templatized by us or by Mike?
So as of right now, the Symfony 4, Symfony 5, and Laravel templates. At the moment, only PHP is supported by Lando on Platform. We expect that to grow, but at the moment it's just PHP. Drupal ones will come. The main thing that those files add, and this is an interesting feature that was added to Lando for Platform. I can talk about this a bit. It's fun. There's a way to override platform config, especially environment variables, from the Lando config file. So while almost everything should run just fine with the basic Platform.sh recipe, which will basically take the platform configuration files and translate them into Lando config on the fly. You can also override environment variables for things like forcing your application into dev mode when it's running local without having to modify your app YAML file, which you then have to modify back to have it in production mode. So you can have it automatically switch as long as your application is based on environment variables. If it's not, depending on the application, there may be ways to trick it out to do so. So wherever it's setting that environment, the dev mode or not, you base it on an environment variable you come up with. There's a lot of flexibility there. But that's really all that's going on in those extra files, and also things like setting up Drush or the Symfony CLI or the Laravel CLI to run from within Lando. So you can run Lando bin console blah 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 for some Symfony command, or Lando artisan blah 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 for some Laravel command, and so forth. So they're very simple files. And if you are an expert in one of these applications and have feedback on what would make it an even better file, we want to know. We want that configuration to be as powerful as possible, but we can't know every application's in and out. So send a pull request or ping us in Slack. And that's a chat.platform.sh if you're not familiar with our Slack channel. And hopefully we can get that improved. We want, this is a collaborative effort. So we want those configurations to be as powerful and robust as possible. And we just lost Ottavio again. All right.
I think he pops out just to go look at the. So to the audience, one of the features that this platform is meant to bring is that we're simultaneously broadcasting to YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Is that true, Ottavio? When he comes back, Mr. Ottavio.
Yes.
Yes, it is. And is it working? Can people like switch between the three and see the same thing?
Yes, that's what I'm doing right now. I'm checking the whole channel, and right now I'm just to put any kind of question in Facebook. Check if that's gonna appear. Oh yes.
Aha!
There we go.
So, Ottavio, how many times have I told you to please stop surfing social media so much and just do your job? Come on, man.
Okay, guys, I'm here. I'm just checking the LinkedIn right now.
Right. Maximilian, do you have any questions for us? Francis, any follow-up questions? You're risking us just going off on our own topics.
We don't want that.
I'm warning you.
Well, we do have a question from Facebook from this Ottavio Santana person. I don't know. He seems like he's been on the show before.
This sounds scurious. So, Chad, why don't you take Ottavio's question? Why should you use a pass?
Sure. So maybe first of all, would be a good idea to touch quickly on where PaaS sits in the spectrum of cloud offerings for an application. So PaaS stands for a platform as a service. So that would be compared to something like a software as a service model, where you are, as a developer, very much restricting everything that you're giving to your final client. And in many cases, the final piece of software will be almost identical, and there will be everything provided to them at the very end of the day that they want to use. The other end of that same spectrum would be infrastructure as service. So that would be something like AWS. You have everything about the servers is provided for you, but anything that has to do with defining a database service or defining a runtime that you want to piece together to run your final application is pretty much up to you to configure in the first place and maintain over time over the life cycle of your application. So a lot of responsibility is placed on you and your team to keep those things up to date. Platform as service, it's right there in the middle, where platform as service like us, Platform.sh, we sit on top of an infrastructure as service provider and take care of the maintenance and definition of these runtimes and services that you would be able to piece together into your application. So if a security release comes out for a minor version of PHP, you don't need to update that for yourself. We will do that in the background, and it'll be automatically applied on the next time you deploy your project. So it takes away a lot of that responsibility and abstracts it away so that it also makes it very easy to try new things out when you're developing your applications by having a really simplified configuration setup. For us, that's these 3 configuration YAML files Rob touched on initially on that first question. So then instead of going through first the hassle of defining and installing and maintaining those versions of MariaDB or PHP or Go in the first place, I can place a new attribute for that language or that service in these YAML files and know that any security updates are going to be taken care of for me in the background. And what's more, I don't have to necessarily teach my team how to do any of that maintenance in the background, or even how to have any kind of AWS expertise to maintain a cluster like that for my application. So it seems to me a really great trade-off for getting teams from idea to deployed application with a mindset for long-term maintenance of those 3 options.
Cool. Thanks, Chad. Let's go on to Maximilian's question about on-premise. So no, when people sign up for Platform.sh, you basically then use the underlying infrastructure that we manage, and we manage our infrastructure on all of the major clouds, including AWS, GCP, Azure, OVH, and some others. So you do get choices, though, around where the location of your project is geographically, and that has also implications for which underlying cloud it's on. So sometimes customers ask us, hey, I don't want to be on Amazon. I want to be on something else. Which regions do you have that offer Google, for example? And then we can give you a list of those, and you can put your project in one of those. But there's no model in our business right now where you can launch Platform.sh on your own private cloud or use your infrastructure account like your AWS account.
Another question here from Francis asking what's upcoming, what new features on the horizon. I got excited last night when I noticed the redeploy button in the panel. What cool things got quietly pushed out I should be aware of? So yeah, that redeploy button has been there for, I think, a month now, and it is the bee's knees.
Yeah, it's nice.
The first day it was out, I pushed it like 16 times in an hour. So yeah, we do little stuff like that all the time. What's coming up? Let's see. We already have.
But wait! Before you go on, let's ask are people aware of some of the stuff that we already have launched that we don't talk about a lot, like source operations have been launched for an entire year, but I'm not sure a lot of people really have used those. Activity scripts have been launched for a while, but also those we just don't talk about them very much. So maybe you could give 2 answers. Maybe you could talk about the cool things that get quietly pushed out first, and then talk about what's coming up. And I'm going to go make a coffee because I know that's going to take Larry about a half an hour.
Hey, now. So, as Rob mentioned, probably the biggest things we've launched that people don't realize are there would be source operations and activity scripts. Source operations are a way to trigger a one-off command that checks out your code into a writable environment, kind of like a build environment, lets you run an arbitrary script and then commit back to the repository. The main use for this is to set up some kind of automated task to check out from, say, an update branch, run composer update or npm update or whatever, bundle update, whatever your language's update routines are. If there are changes, great, commit those changes back to the repository and push that back to the update branch. So your update branch always contains the latest updated upstream code. And then you can decide, oh, it looks ready. I've got security updates ready for it. I'll click that merge button and poof, I've now got my security updates deployed. I didn't have to do anything locally. I just have a background script that runs nightly that updates that branch, and I can merge it whenever I feel like. We have sample code that does that in the documentation site. There are a lot of other things you can do with that as well. You don't have to do just composer updates. If you want to update stuff through wget or whatever other script you want to write, you can. The main use case, though, is keeping your code up to date, but you can do other things with it. Activity scripts are a separate feature. We've had webhooks for a long time, and webhooks allow you to respond to activities. As Platform does its thing, you push code, we recompile it, rebuild it, deploy it, you make a backup, you sync data. All these kind of things generate activities. And activities are just events, and you can hook into those events to do all kinds of things. The biggest ones, of course, are GitHub and GitLab integration, but you can do anything reactive you want. And right now, or traditionally, we've supported register a third-party webhook URL, and then anytime something happens, we ping that with a big JSON payload that tells you everything you need to know about what just happened. And then you can do whatever code you want. Activity scripts are that same thing, but hosted on Platform. So you don't need an extra external service for that. You write it in JavaScript. It's a kind of an older version of JavaScript that runs embedded in our system. And then you push that to your project, not via git push, but via an API call. Our CLI has a command to install a script as an integration. And then when events happen, that activity script runs and it does, well, whatever you wrote in your script. The canonical example for that are things like anytime you have a new deployment, you check to see, was it successful or not? If it was not, you drop a message into a Slack channel to say, hey, you just tried to deploy something and it didn't work. You might want to go look at that. Or someone just ran a backup and it was successful. Yay! Or whatever, this kind of notification. But you're not limited to that. If you want to, say, trigger a third-party system to respond when Platform does something, you can very easily do that as long as it can respond to web requests. You can also trigger source operations. So I believe Chad worked on an example a couple of months ago that we can probably find somewhere and put in the show notes that demonstrates having an activity script that actually, Rob or Chad, I'm going to hand it over to you because I don't remember exactly how you had it all wired up. It was cool between activity scripts and source ops.
Yeah, so it was a Drupal 9 project, our standard Drupal 9 template that had a composer update source operation placed in its app YAML. Then you are able to install our CLI into the application container, which can then trigger that source operation. And you can connect that to a ongoing cron job for the app container. And so that was the regular background source operation part to it. Once you've added the activity script, which you're in our example was committed with the rest of the repository, it doesn't necessarily need to be, but you push it up through the CLI locally to the project. And what it did was it took an environment variable for a token to a particular Slack channel. And so it was set up to deliver this notification that Larry's talking about. But the way that it ran the source operation, it actually outputs the difference that was applied during the update, during Composer update to a diff.json file, which was then parsed and then printed into the Slack message that was delivered to the channel. So every day checks for an update. If there is an update, you get a notification on that this dedicated branch has an update, and you know today's the day I got to go look at the update dependencies environment. Any other day, you don't get any message, even though it runs. But on the day that there are updates you need to check, then you are notified.
And then if everything looks good in that branch, you just hit the merge button in the UI and you're done. You've got
exactly
your updates deployed to production.
I actually, I placed some comments in the live stream on YouTube. I'm not seeing them come up on my side here. I don't know if you all are, but I included the docs link for or public documentation pages for source operations, activity scripts, and then a link to that YouTube video that shows exactly what Blair and I were just describing. You don't see them?
I didn't see any of your comments come up on the YouTube
Oh, really?
channel.
Yeah, I'm placing them in the YouTube chat, and I see them there.
You're not able to paste any kind of link on the YouTube chat. You need to use the private chat, and then I can paste there. Because you need to have the
I do
power.
not have the power.
Like me. I do.
Probably YouTube's anti-spam stuff going on.
Sure.
Yes, you're not able to do that.
That makes sense. Well, anyways, I will go through that to give those to Octavio, and you can get a link to the video where I sort of demoed the whole thing from the standard Drupal 9 template to delivered messages and merge from Slack channel notification to finally merging that branch.
Cool.
Okay,
we have a new question from...
Send me, because I can try the broadcast comment.
Great, thanks, Otavio. We have a new question from Sebastian, but I don't understand it. So the question is, what would be the difference with using depend-abot, which is creating a branch, therefore a new environment starts as well? So maybe I'm just not familiar enough with what depend-abot is doing for you, Sebastian, if you want to describe that a little bit more. But
So I
with
think we can answer this
platform...
one. So
Go for it.
depend-abot is a GitHub feature that scans through repositories periodically and says, oh, look, you have a dependency in your Composer JSON file or your package JSON file or whatever that is out of date, and there's a security notice against it. So here's a pull request to update that line in your Composer JSON file. And yes, I believe that will. If you are using GitHub integration, that should spin up a branch, which will spin up a new environment in Platform. And you could use that as an alternative approach. If you're on GitHub and if you want depend-abot to do that work, and if depend-abot can understand the updates you want to do. If all of those are true, then that should work fine. If those are not true, here's a way that you can custom write whatever you feel like and have it notify you however you'd like and so on. So there's definitely options for keeping your site up to date. Source ops and activity scripts are one of them, but if something else is already working, please use what works.
And that's one example of something that you can do with it. I know we had another example that's in the community site of, we have this collection of runtimes and services of number of versions that you might be interested in testing out if your application works on the newest version of Node.js or of Postgres. And one of our colleagues used this source operations activity scripts relationship to get a notification once a newer image became available. And so that they got a message in Slack that said, you're running Node 12, 4 is available. Something like that is another thing that maybe not be triggered in the same way for that specific example.
Ooh, I have an example.
Yeah.
So on Platform.sh, it's an interesting feature that to rebuild the code, i.e. rerun Maven or rerun Composer or rerun NPM, you actually have to make a change in the Git repository of some sort. And the reason for that is really interesting, and I just found it out after all of these years working for Platform.sh and understood it for real for the first time. So I'm going to explain it and then get to the source operations use case. So the reason is that there are, let's see if I get this right. There's the get tree, and then there are the get commits, the object tree and the get commits, and they're not the same thing. And I was totally confused about this for a long time. I thought that when you when you pushed to Platform, that it would link the build code to the commit hash, but it doesn't. It actually links it to the tree ID, which is very much what Git uses to monitor the state of the code and the actual details of what changes in the code. You can actually make a new commit ID through Git without changing the code, but you can't change the tree object without changing the code. And the reason that is really interesting is because we use the tree objects which are hierarchical, to monitor whether you've changed one of your multi-apps in a multi-app situation. This is how in the Gatsby Drupal application example that I gave you, if you change the Gatsby app, it'll rebuild Gatsby but leave Drupal alone because of the tree ID change, not the Git ID change. So people often come in and say, hey, I really want to rebuild the code on my project, but I don't want to actually change the code. I just want it to rebuild. How do I do that? And we have a redeploy, but that actually just reuses the same built slug of the code again, and it doesn't rebuild the code. It just redeploys it, meaning it starts all the services and everything. I have a baby, by the way, in case you hadn't already noticed. So source operations, what you can do is you can have a source operation that increments something in a file. Like you have a JSON file that just has a number in it, and you read it, increment it, write it back, commit it, and then all of a sudden you've got a source operation that you can trigger from the command line that rebuilds your code in a very organized way.
That'd work.
Ho, ho, ho.
We have a question here.
We have a question about service that you support, that you provide as Platform.sh. Yes, Maximilian, you make your life easier with Platform.sh. We have support to let you use my memory right now. Elasticsearch, InfluxDB, Apache Kafka, Main Cache, MongoDB, MariaDB, MySQL, PostgreSQL, RabbitMQ, Redis, Solar, and I don't remember anything else,
Headless
guys.
Chrome.
And Varnish.
Okay, thank you. So basically, you can connect your application, Java, PHP, Node.js, with that service. And guess what? We don't need to handle that. Platform.sh can handle to you automatically. So basically, you connect the application and use this kind of service. You have the option to update if you want. And we use the GitHub approach, therefore code as infrastructure. Basically, if you want to put MongoDB, just put an YAML file, and that is it. If you want to upgrade, that is it. Let me check if I found the link here. Okay, I found the link. 1 second. Where you can have the whole information about the service that we provide. Yes, we have several stuff. Just enjoy.
And on the language front, we support PHP, Python, Ruby, Node, Java, Go, and technically Lisp, Elixir, and C#.net. Those last three are not very often used, but they are there. And if you are using them, please let us know, because that's really cool.
Well, furthermore, you can install those supports are where we have a concept for how those languages want to build their source code, and you can just check the source code in and it will get built and deployed. But you can actually check anything in to your Git repository and run it. It's just a Debian operating system underneath, and if it's going to run on Debian, it's going to run on Platform.sh. So sky's the limit.
I have sample code where I'm downloading the Rust compiler and installing Rust and compiling a Rust library, all in the build cook, which I then plug into a PHP script via PHP's foreign function interface. Why? Because that's why. And it works. So, yeah, you can do. People have done some really esoteric things with Platform that surprise us, and that's always great to see when someone pulls off something we never expected. Also,
except Bitcoin mining. We don't like Bitcoin mining.
True.
Except Bitcoin mining. We don't like that.
Yeah.
We shut that down.
Yes, please don't install Bitcoin miners. So we also had the question earlier, what's upcoming, not just what's cool stuff has been missed.
Yeah.
Upcoming. I don't know, what are we allowed to say that's upcoming that we can actually talk about? I know there's the Lando work that's happening. We are planning to have PHP 8.0 support the day that PHP 8.0 is released. We've done that for the last like 4 PHP releases. So why break a streak? And you can already test out PHP 8 on platform today using the PHP 8.0-RC container. It's still pre-release, so don't run production on it, but you can test your code there very easily. Let's see. What else?
I think that well, I mean, we're moving into an era where we can offer customers dedicated environments that operate almost exactly the same as the multi-tenant environments. So when you get a Platform.sh account right now, you basically get containers that are in a swarm of containers on a huge grid of very large servers where everybody's containers are all swarming around together. It's like swarms of birds and swarms of bees. And it's birds and bees and birds and bees and swarms. But you're just one of the birds or one of the bees. Better pick my analogies better in the future, but you get it, right? You're just like little containers in the big cloud. Whereas some customers want to know that, your birds or your bees are actually off on their own, doing their own thing together. And we can now offer that as dedicated birds and bee containers. We've got documentation on that. Is that live yet?
Not yet.
It's going to be live soon. So this is like imminent. Like this is there. We're documenting.
Once engineering tells us we're actually selling that, which we're not quite yet, but that is coming very soon.
Another thing that we can talk about, I think, is our ongoing effort to surface more data and metrics and monitoring information about the sites that people are running. I think it's a frustration for some of our customers. I know I certainly miss the feature when I compare it to other companies' dashboards, that you can't really see immediately how all of your sites are performing or their health status. We have some things, around health status email checks that can be sent to you, but that's not quite the same as a dashboard. And we've been working in the background to set the basis for a very deep and profound level of monitoring and health check. And that's coming. And no timeline on that. That's a little further down the road, but that's definitely something you're going to see relatively soon. And you'll wake up one day and you'll have a nice dashboard.
Yeah, that's one where it sounds simple, but when you're dealing with thousands of containers across hundreds of servers that you need to surface to the right place and get the right information out of them, there's actually a number of extra layers to go through that makes it more difficult than it sounds like. So, and we want to make sure we do it right. So do it in a way that's not going to impact performance, that's not going to leak data to the wrong places, that's then going to look nice and be informative in the UI. So there's a lot going into that. We've been working on that for some time now. Our engineering team has got people working on that. But our goal there is to be able to surface both to our team and to customers, here's what your servers are doing or what your containers are doing. Here's how healthy they are. Here's the things you should be paying attention to. There's a decent amount you can figure out now from the information available. It just isn't quite as pretty. We have a script that a customer actually built that for PHP containers can analyze the log file and give you some nice pretty graphs on CPU usage and response time and things like that, as well as guidelines for how to interpret it to say, all right, this means I need to increase my plan size. This means I need to run this particular feature through Blackfire in order to figure out why it's so slow. This means, and so on. So there is a decent amount of introspection you can do now, but we want it to be better, and that work is in progress. Another thing that is actively being worked on is right now the production branch on Git environments is hard-coded to master, which was the Git default since Git's been around. We are working on making that configurable. It's not ready yet, but it will come. That's difficult because that keyword was just hard-coded into our code in a lot of places because, well, it was hard-coded into Git. Now it's not hard-coded into Git, so we're working to make it not hard-coded into our code.
It's like the one thing we hard-coded. Everything else was an abstraction layer on abstraction layers of abstraction layers, but that we hard-coded that.
One string! Ah! Yeah, that's in work in progress. So expect that sometime nearish.
Okay, guys, I guess that's enough time. Thank you for this amazing conversation. Ask me anything.
I have
Thank
a
you,
question
chat.
for the audience before we sign off. We were doing this mainly as an
Okay,
excuse to test out
come
the
on.
software, and I think we're kind of liking the new broadcast tools. So we'll probably be sticking with that for Deploy Friday. Do you want us to do another one of these? Would these kind of occasional AMAs be helpful, be interesting?
Yeah, a little bit more informal live streams. Felt good.
And should we sing karaoke songs while we do it?
The answer is no, please. Stop this man.
No, let's do it. I have a guitar, so we can make that happen.
Live stream
But
harmony.
anyway, we need to try that next week because I have an issue with LinkedIn. I need to fix to try next week. So anyway, there's no option, Larry.
Oh dear.
So it'll be AMAA. Ask me anything again.
Right.
Oh yeah.
And for those still around, remember on Friday we have our next Deploy Friday episode. This time we're talking about accessibility with Carrie Fisher and Nick Steenhout, both of whom I know from years in the PHP and Drupal communities. So that should be a good talk. Definitely tune in for that. I don't know if we're going to switch over to StreamYard for that yet. We may wait for next week on that, but that's coming up.
Yeah, that'll be Friday
question.
at 11 a.m. Eastern time on our main platform channel, Platform.sh.
I get the question.
Oh,
so Maximilian asks, does Platform also manage the backup between the services and the environments? So yeah, actually, we're really proud of the way that Platform manages backups in general. So let me break it down. So first of all, you need to know that the definition of your infrastructure, what services you use, how the routes work, that is all something that is stored in your code. And the code is backed up in Git. Okay, so there's actually no backup service for the code because you have Git. So that's the first concept in backup on Platform.sh that you have to have. So that when you revert to a backup, you use Git for the code. For the data, we're really proud of the way that we manage the data because we see the data as a holistic thing. Okay, it's not the database plus the uploaded files plus the Solr index plus the Redis cache plus whatever. It's everything all at once. So when you use the backup button on Platform.sh and do a backup either with the CLI or through the interface or the API, then it snapshots everything on persistent disk at one moment in time, so they're all consistent. Super important if you have, for example, a database that stores the locations of files, and then you've got those files on the hard drive, and then you've got a Solr index or an Elasticsearch that like is indexing those so you can search for them. Those three things need to stay in synchronicity with each other for them to be consistent and usable. And with Platform.sh, you get a consistent backup of all of those. So when you trigger a backup, that's what you get, basically a snapshot of everything at that moment. And you can do that on any environment, whether it's on your production branch or any of your development branches. And here's maybe the most important thing. You have to manage those yourself. So we have tutorials about how to configure them to be automatic. You should probably do it before you deploy, especially into production. But you need to actually set up your own backup schedules if you want there to be backups there at all. So that's a really important point. And finally, one last point, it is possible, especially if you use the CLI to do this, to restore the backup from one environment onto another environment, which is a great way to migrate your data between environments or like replace the data in one environment from historical data. Like maybe I want to see what the site looked like a year ago. I can replace the, I can take the production backup from a year ago and restore that into my development branch just to look at the data. So hopefully that answered your questions. And I see somebody saying yes to karaoke. Thank you, Stephanie. I love karaoke.
So I'm actually going to riff off of Rob there. One of the important things about backups is they are not an SQL dump. They are a bitwise snapshot. That's why we're able to do all services together. So they're not something you can download and reuse. At the moment, they are manually snapshotted, and we will delete them after a period of time. So you don't have a back snapshot from a year ago. They are mainly useful for disaster recovery. That said, we are working on the ability to make those automated. So we will be offering an automated backup system. I don't have a timeline on that, but that is coming. And then you won't have to set up an auto cron for it yourself. You'll just get a nightly backup taken automatically on every environment. So coming soon, and that will, I believe, have 2 or 3 backups. Again, it's for something went wrong. Let me grab the latest backup and restore that data. If you want to have long-term permanent archival storage, then you can do your own SQL dumps and so forth, however you feel like.
Cool. That's a wrap, huh?
Yes.
So we'll see
Thank you,
everyone on
everybody.
Friday.
Thanks for joining
Please
us.
join us. We have Platform.sh, Twitter, Facebook, whatever you want, YouTube as well. So hope see you this Friday about
Accessibility.
JavaScript accessibility.
Yeah, last week was JavaScript. This week is accessibility. Next week is PHP.
Okay, guys. See you soon. Bye bye.